If you love a good birth story, today's episode of the Fearless Future podcast is for you. Between Leah Jacobson and I, we have almost 20 birth stories, and we are going to reflect on some moments from our birth stories and invite you to do the same. That's what's coming up today on the Fearless Future podcast.
Welcome to the Fearless Future podcast, where your hosts Lisa Canning and Leah Jacobson will explore what the world would look like if women didn't fear pregnancy. Through education, community, and healthcare solutions, Guiding Star Project strives to make this a reality at our physical centers across the United States. Join us.
Leah Jacobson, how are you?
Good morning. I'm good today. How are you, Lisa Canning?
Wonderful. I've got my coffee. It is piping hot. It is only my second cup of the day, so I feel like there's a good future ahead of me. And in fact, it's only like I never finish my cup of coffee. You know what I mean? So it's really not really. Like it's really only, this is the continuation of the first cup of coffee. So anyways, I am very excited.
Yeah, I'm still, this is my first cup of coffee today. We're slow today getting up and running just because of the 4th of July, the hangover of, not an actual hangover, but the hangover of late night fireworks and, summer chaos and all that fun. So I've got I think half my kids are sleeping still. So it's kind of wonderful.
Well, to all of our listeners on the Fearless Future podcast, let us know, how is your summer going? Are you also in this, no schedule, need maybe more of a schedule, need more structure? Who knows? Whatever you're going through, we are in solidarity with you as moms. So if you're new to us, Leah and I have almost 20 birth stories. I have 10 children here on earth. Leah, you've got 7 children here on earth. And so we have a lot of experience. All of our births have been, we have a variety of birth kinds of stories. Leah has given birth in all kinds of places. And so today we thought we would share a little bit about our birth stories by asking some introspective questions. And while you are listening, we want to encourage you to go on a similar self-reflective journey as we ask these questions. As you hear me ask these and answer the questions, please feel free to answer them for yourself and leave us a comment wherever you are listening, your response to these questions. Okay, Leah, are you ready for a little bit of story time?
Yeah, I guess we're going to see what comes out today. This is kind of fun because it's really sort of unscripted. It's just like whatever is like hidden in the recesses of our brain folds about our birth experiences might come forward.
I have prepared a series of, again, a little bit more introspective, reflective questions about birth. And so we're going to have fun. But before we do that, I want to share, Leah, the Guiding Star Project is hiring. Isn't that fun?
It's incredibly exciting. That's good stuff. Yes.
We have got 2 positions that we are looking to fill. The first is a volunteer executive director position at the brand new Guiding Star Crosby. I'm not sure if we had the opportunity to share with our podcast listeners that we just opened Guiding Star Crosby. It is right in Leah's, right around the corner from Leah's home. It is going to be the operation headquarters for Guiding Star project, as well as we're offering limited services to the public. And so we are looking for an eager and enthusiastic volunteer executive director. We're also looking to fill the position of development director here at Guiding Star Project. So take a look wherever you are listening to this episode. There is a link where you can read more about these positions. We would love to hear from you. Alrighty, Leah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay, let's do it.
Recesses of your brain. To give people context, your oldest child is 20.
I know. That's why I'm like, I can't even remember some of these things. It feels so long ago.
And then your youngest child, Esther, remind us how old?
She just turned 5. So I should be able to remember that. But even that feels very blurry. Mom brain is real.
It's going to be great. My oldest child is 15, and Lucy, my youngest, is at 7 months. So it's a little bit fresher for me. Okay, here we go, Leah. first question as we celebrate our
Why am I nervous? I feel nervous.
This is not a test. You can't get it. You can't get it right or wrong. Okay.
I'm gonna get it wrong.
You get it wrong. Can you share? This is a very softball question. Okay. Very,
okay.
very
Give me an easy one.
Easy one. Share a memorable moment from one of your birth experiences that always makes you smile or laugh.
Oh gosh. Oh, okay. I actually do have this one. I remember this one. This actually made it into my birth story. So I always try to write down my kids' birth stories, which actually this morning when I realized we were doing this show, I was like, I need to pull up my birth story document. And so I have this old document that a Word document back in like 2007, 2008, where I started recording, I was having these babies so fast. And this actually made it into my birth story on one of my kids because it was such like a kind of funny moment for me. It was my first and only home birth experience with a midwife at home. And so the whole thing sounds funny if I just share the actual experience. Like the whole birth was really weird and funny in general. Dilated all the way to 9.5 centimeters without being in active labor. I didn't feel any pain. I was just sort of at home making cookies, doing dishes, putting kids to bed, and I could just feel the pressure increasing and increasing and increasing all day. And so finally my midwife came over that evening and we were at 9.5 centimeters and I hadn't felt one contraction. It was the weirdest labor ever. But that's not the funny part. Like, that's not the part that makes me laugh. It was actually, I got into the birth tub finally around like 11 o'clock at night, even though I'm still not in labor. I'm like, I'm just going to get in and see if something happens. Nothing happened. My husband fell asleep on the couch next to me. All the kids were sleeping upstairs in bed. And finally I just felt the pop and my water broke. And it was just this, I think I could have pushed the baby out like that second my water broke. I was like, oh my gosh. And my husband wouldn't wake up. I'm like yelling at him. I'm in the water. I'm like, get up, call the midwife. Like, I'm having a baby. Like, it was like this moment of like, I'm all by myself and no one's waking up. The midwife finally gets there. It took her about 15 minutes to get there. I felt like I was holding a baby in just to like wait for my midwife to get there. And I remember her basically just saying something along the lines of like, you're doing so great. Like, you're doing so awesome. Like, she was so encouraging. She was really, really, just a great midwife, kind of this mama bear, just like hugs you, holds you, just makes you feel so safe. And she said something about, she's like, it's really not that bad, is it? And she said, it's really not that bad. And I just remember looking at her and being like, what are you talking about? Like, I am pushing out a baby right now. I'm like, it's really not that bad. It's not that bad for you, huh? And it was just so snarky and like so snotty that like everybody in the room was just like
oh my.
Like I think there were 3 birth assistants they were students and there was a doula and my husband, and they all just went, and like nobody said a word. And then they all just burst out laughing because they were like, that was like the most primal, like woman in transition, like scream fest that I've ever experienced. It just was so mean. I've never been that mean ever.
Is it comparable to how you show up at some kids sporting events?
Oh my gosh. Oh. Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to. It was just so uncharacteristic. That was the thing. Like, I was so together and like so, and like she just was like, yeah, it's not that bad, is it? And I just was like, what are you talking about? Like, not that bad for you.
Things that trigger us. Well, that's so sweet that everybody in the room laughed because they were like, this is so not Leah. This is clearly, Leah under duress.
And he was born probably like a minute later. Like, it was so close. Like,
I love that everybody laughed. Okay, my story that makes me chuckle is with Lucy. So the baby that I just had, and it was kind of an interesting day because I unfortunately had super high blood pressure. So they were getting very concerned that I had preeclampsia. And so I was kind of monitored all day. In my head, because all of my previous babies were born so quickly, Leah, I was like, this is going to be like a 4-hour visit to the hospital. It ended up being an entire day. I remember texting you guys. Being like, yeah, I'm definitely not going to make it to the meeting because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be like right now. I honestly thought it was going to be imminent, but it was a full 24-hour experience, like being in the hospital. So I remember telling my husband, no, like, don't go home. Like, this is going to happen really soon. Like, as soon as I get into the room, it's going to be real quick. Okay. That real quick didn't happen. Right. Like I said. So then when I kind of realized, wow, like I'm only 2 centimeters or something, but I feel like I'm in labor. Like I was like, yeah, why don't you go home? Honestly, I think this is going to take a really long time. I will text you because we don't live that far from the hospital. So I was like, I will text you when it's actually time. And he was like, okay, I feel more comfortable about that. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So then I could tell it was time. It was maybe 4 a.m., so it had been a very, very long day, I think, for everyone involved. 4 a.m. and things picked up real quick. I don't remember exactly when Lucy was born, but long story short, I'm pushing. I'm like, just like, it was a thank goodness the midwife was there to also talk more sense into me, like I'm very grateful because I was tremendously screaming, all the things. And so
all the things.
I just remember being like, oh wow, like this is such an accomplishment. It was very intense. I had the benefit of a midwife and an OB because I was transferred to the OB. So I had both of them cheering me on. It was so much ruckus in the room, like there was a lot of like, okay, yay, Lisa, you can do it. I think it was loud between my guttural sounds and the midwife and the OB, everyone, it was a loud environment. And I remember kind of thinking in the back of my head, like, oh, like, is Josh going to make it? Like, is my husband going to actually make it for the birth? Because he hadn't shown up, and I could tell it was like time, right? I could tell.
Yeah.
And at one point I was like on my side. I had never done that before. PS. I'd always labored kind of on my back. This was the first time I labored almost the entire thing on my side.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Mm-hmm.
So nice. And my incredible midwife was like, if you roll over, we'll have a baby. It was such an interesting phrase. I remember it so distinctly. She was just like, if you roll over, you'll have a baby. I wasn't thinking about Josh at this point. I was just so focused.
No, you're not thinking about him right now. You're like, get this baby out.
And so I roll over, and I kid you not, it was just like she kind of flew out.
That's crazy.
In the moment that she flew out, right? And everybody in the room is kind of like excited, heightened, and of course they're trying to make sure baby's safe, I'm safe. Like, there's a lot of activity. And then in the door comes my husband strolling, strolling like this. And he's like, oh, hi guys. And that was the words out of his mouth, Leah. Oh, hi everyone. And I laughed. I was like, oh my God.
He missed it.
He told us it was just funny that it was a friend's activity. And then my very laid back husband just very nonchalantly, oh, hi. Oh, is something?
Hi.
No, my husband in real life, I think you can picture it like he's a very quiet, very down to earth, introverted guy. And so it just was so fitting that he just walked in and was like, oh, is something happening? Is there a baby?
So it just seems so fitting for the two of you, baby number 10, like just sort of like, yeah, this is what we do. Like we just have babies. How did you be there?
Everybody was like, you missed it. And we were both kind of like, whatever.
He's like, been there, done that. He's like, we'll do it again next year. We're good.
Oh my gosh. So that one makes me laugh. Okay, Leah.
That's funny.
Oh, here's a funny one. Okay, I don't know this about you. I know a lot of things about you, but I actually don't know this particular aspect of your birth stories. Were there any, for any of your children, okay, were there any quirky or unique traditions or rituals that you followed after birth or during birth?
Oh, I don't know. Like, not really. I feel like I'm pretty like rituals. Can you think of anything for yourself? I'm not even really sure what this would refer to.
So, okay.
I pray when I'm in labor. I pray. I don't know if that counts.
I'll tell you mine. So I've shared on the podcast that I am new to the guiding star way, let's say. Okay. So like I had never really thought about being a little bit more, I don't know what the word is. Like, it was just sort of, I had an epidural because that's what you did. So I did.
Present. You weren't present in the experience.
So I just had an epidural for so many of my babies because it was just what you did. And I didn't realize that I had other options. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of never even considered other options. And so my ritual that is kind of funny is, as soon as I was like, oh, I think labor is imminent, I would blow dry my hair and do a full face of makeup so I could show up to the hospital completely made up. I literally be like, oh, Josh, I think it's happening. Okay, I need about 45 minutes to go blow dry my hair and then get ready to go to the hospital. That's my,
I think that's a really, that's a good way to be mentally prepped for it. Like, you're like, I'm going to show up and put my best foot forward.
game face on. Game face was important to me.
No,
I mean, it was.
For me, I always try to kind of prep. So I don't know if you've ever done I doubt you've ever done hypnobirthing before. But there's like the whole hypnobirthing. They have the CDs, like the preparation CDs. And so I've done the hypnobirthing CDs before, where you listen to them, throughout your labor, and you learn to relax. And so, yeah, I guess that maybe that's sort of my, like, it's starting to happen. Like, I'll go to that hypnobirthing kind of place. And oftentimes it was with, a very specific artist, a friend of mine, Danielle Rose. And so I would listen to Danielle Rose CDs and just like kind of try to get my like self to just kind of go to that interior place of, this isn't pain. This is just pressure, sort of all the mantras and the mindsets that you have to have a natural childbirth. Like, I think that's pretty much all I do.
I love it. I mean, that's the mantras and the mental prep. That's what I mean about my experience pre-Guiding Star, let's call it. I did not understand or I didn't do mental prep. Like, I didn't have that same relationship with birth, in that it's kind of like an accomplishment, and that your body is doing something amazing, as I did in my latter, my more recent birth. So I love that you would prep with that. Yeah, the mental prep is so important. Okay, here's a great question. What was the most surprising thing about the postpartum period that you wish you had known before giving birth? So surprising.
Baby number one was, well, I was so sick throughout my pregnancies. I have hyperemesis with all of them. So I throw up nonstop. And so I felt so much better. Like, the second the baby is delivered, the hyperemesis is gone. You feel amazing. And so with baby number one, 22 years old, we went camping, like, with a 5-day-old. Like, we like literally went like tent camping with a newborn because I just felt so much better. Yeah, we took him camping. Because I felt so good.
No running water?
I mean, we think we were at a campground. They had running water, but it was a campground, like, we were in a tent. But yeah, outdoors camping, with, all the postpartum, everything that, like, now I know, like, you have a wound the size of a dinner plate inside your uterus, like, you're bleeding actively, like, there should be a clot forming. You need to rest, like, your breasts are going to be fully engorged and pain, like, all those things. I didn't really realize how long that transition time took. And until I became a lactation consultant, I didn't realize the transition of, from lactogenesis 1 to lactogenesis 2 to established milk supply. I didn't know that took, almost 2 weeks. And so I ended up with, severely engorged breasts and a uterine infection within a week of having my baby, because I just was like, I feel great. I'm going to go camping. And the way my body felt, like, it didn't match with the reality of, like, what you need in a postpartum period. Like, so I just was like, we're out there. So now I'm like, I'm not getting out of bed for days. Like, I just want to stay still. How about you? What was yours?
This is a little graphic. Sorry, everyone. But I think I didn't realize how much you might bleed postpartum. So I just didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so, it's interesting, again, in my more recent births, period underwear became a thing, right? Like, those things. 15 years ago, or at least I wasn't aware of them if they did exist. And so that definitely just helped things a lot in especially my most recent pregnancy. It just kind of, helped with the management. I felt better, with having more of those tools. So, okay, here's a fun question. What is one piece of advice you received about childbirth that turned out to be completely true or completely false? So one piece of advice you received about childbirth that turned out to be completely true or completely false.
I think I remember just hearing like my first baby, especially a lot of people giving that sort of advice of like, wow, it hurts, like it's horrible. Like it hurts. Like I remember that being kind of like a prevalent theme of like, it really hurts. And that's both true and false for me, because I've experienced births that were really painful and some that really weren't as painful. So, I think there's so much that we have to just kind of like lean into and learn about with what pain is in birth and why some women experience it so much more than others, because yeah, in some cases it did seem to be more true than in others. And I have a lot of theories about that, but I think that was the thing I just kept like hearing from older women is like, oh, it's so horrible. Like, just don't even think about it. You'll get through it. Just don't even think about it.
100%. Like I definitely had more voices around me that were like epidural upon admission. Like that's just sort of, that was the phrase that I had in my brain in my early pregnancies. It was like epidural upon admission. Like you get to the thing and you order, like, it's like you do it immediately. I can remember, Leah, when I was still interior designing, I remember I was very pregnant. It was probably my first. And I did this consult at this beautiful woman's home. And she was so polished and so, just like really just this beautiful, polished, a little older than me woman. She was a grandmother at the time. But it was so interesting when she, we were chit-chatting when the design consult was over, we were chit-chatting and she was like, okay, like, have you thought about, are you going to do an epidural or not? And I was like, oh, I'm like pretty certain I'm going to have an epidural. And it was so interesting. She got all like primal. Like it was we were standing in this beautiful, like she was dressed beautifully, like perfectly, like manicured nails and, blow dried hair. And we were standing in her beautiful living room. And she just was like, listen, like, this is what I want you to do. And she kind of like squatted and she started making these sounds. And she was like, just think like, and I remember being so like, okay, this is very like different than what everyone and I don't know you at all. And this is so interesting and totally the opposite of maybe what I imagine you would say about birth. But yeah, I just had a lot of voices that said, this is not possible for you to do. So you must have pain medication. And it wasn't until much later in my journeys that I had that it's not pain, it's pressure. And I remember this so distinctly, my 8th baby, the very first time I ever did a natural birth. It was our mutual friend and associate. She had told me, because I think I had told her right before, like, hey, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do this naturally. Like, what do you think? And that exact phrase is what she said. It's not pain, it's pressure. And I remember when I would, on the drive over to the hospital, when I would start freaking out about it, like when I would start having the thoughts of, we're not going to get there on time. This is going to be forever. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to even have the option of an epidural. When I had thoughts like that, the pain would increase.
Yeah.
But when I would tell myself, it's not pain, it's pressure, your body, you're closer to baby, you were designed to do this, but particularly the phrase, it's not pain, it's pressure. That one was very, very, very helpful for me. My ninth, just real quick, my 9th baby, I remember I was working out with a beautiful woman named Jessica Copeland. She was my personal trainer. And she, would tolerate in our workouts a lot of my drama. So I would be like, Jessica, I can't do it. She'd be like, come on, you're going to do another 10. Like, come on. And I'd be like, no, I'm not. I'm literally going to die. And she'd be like, you're not going to die. in my 9th pregnancy, my 9th labor, I had her voice in my head. It was fascinating. I literally could hear like the tone of her voice. She would be like, come on, come on, you know? And I remember she would say to me during workouts, she would be like, I'm not leaving until this is done. So she was like, you don't really have an option to like not complete this workout. And I remember hearing similar things. It's like, you can't exactly get out of labor right now. Like it's not, you have an option to kind of eject from this. So you're going to get it done. And it was fascinating. I had her voice in my head.
One of the things that your story about the lady that was like, get low, that phrase actually, the lower your, so I learned this from a midwife in one of the childbirth prep classes that I took that said that they can tell the outcome of a delivery by the pitch of the mother's voice when she's in labor. So if she's high pitched, like high pitched, like I'm experiencing pain, high pitched, like it's not going to go well. She's not in the right space. She's running. She's dissociating from her body. She's like trying to escape, like up high. Versus if she's able to have those like low, like guttural, very low moans that are like low in the body. That's what it takes to push out a baby. And so I just remember them saying like, keep your pitch low, like keep your pitch low. And that proved to be very true. Like the second I started going, like pain, so much more pain. It hurts so much more versus that like, just like very low. And I and I think probably my like, I don't know if it was my least painful birth or not, but like it was almost silent. Like I was like so low, like so like just very, very low. It was almost silent.
Oh, interesting. I am definitely not silent. Like mine were very like, like I remember mine were almost like a bassoon or like a wind instrument. Like mine were very long breaths, long sustained, like anyway. So if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, what does labor like? What should it sound like? Just, you're fine. Keep
very
it low.
low.
keep it low. Okay. What did you ever have a weird craving while in labor?
For food?
For anything, craving for anything.
Gosh, I mean, labor to me is just so like it's so unlike everyday life. Like it's just this weird place that you go to only in labor and like labor land. Like it's very like it's very different. Like it's not reality. You're just sort of dissociated from everything around you. So I don't really create when I'm in labor, like there is nothing else happening. Like my brain can't do anything other than just like breathe through and tolerate. So no, not in labor, but immediately after labor, I always want an ice cream Snickers bar every time. I'm like, I want an ice cream Snickers bar now. Like when I'm done.
My after meal is always sushi. Like give me the biggest like spread of like the highest quality sushi. Okay. I did
French toast. I want French toast right when I'm done. French toast and ice cream Snickers. So sugar.
That sounds delicious. I had 9 births without experiencing the nitrous gas.
I had that last time. That's crazy.
I say that it was like a little craving. And I remember being like, oh, no, I don't really need it. I don't really need it. And then right at the end, I was like, get me the gas, get it now. And it was the best. Like I would just
I will say if that counts as a craving, then yes, I did crave the nitrous gas on that last one. I was like, give it back.
I was like on my side and I just kept being like, I can't remember if I had a button to make it higher or like if you just put you just put your head into it and the pressure you gave yourself, like
okay, I have to tell you something really funny about that. So if you hold the mask like too tight to your face, I don't know, you can create like a negative pressure, which is almost like a vacuum to your face, and the alarms start going off. So I was like sucking it so hard. I was like, and like the alarms are going. They're like, we need to like break the seal on that. Like we need to like remove that for a little bit. I was like, no.
Soften your grasp. You do not need. Okay. Final question today, Leah. what is the most tender memory you have of your husband in any of your birth stories?
Oh gosh. Well, it's funny because it took us a long time to figure out like what his role is in birth. Like my husband's a nurse. And so
Right.
he, he's used to being in the hospital setting and he's used to being, kind of busy and sort of in charge, in situations, running codes, doing an ICU nurse at the time. He was working in an intensive care unit. So
Oh,
he's
wow.
very comfortable in the hospital, which I think is probably not common for a lot of wives. And so it took us a really long time. The first two births, like I was very like, I don't want you coaching me. Like, I don't want you telling me, like, don't be in that capacity. Like, just be my husband. Like, but like, couldn't quite figure out what that looked like. We had taken like a Bradley class and it was the husband coached childbirth, which nice theory for some couples, but for us, I was like, don't tell me what to do. Like, no, like, don't tell me what to do. You don't know what's going on. No. So like our dynamic in birth was really like, he's kind of like trying to help me, but then I'm like, get out of here. And then he's like, so it was like really rough. And it was baby number 3. I read the book Birthing from Within, and there was a chapter in Birthing from Within that actually just describes the father's role as the protector of the birth space. And as soon as I read that, it clicked that his job, like what I wanted him to do in labor, was to protect the room, not to like tell me what to do, but to just make it safe around me, to like, guard the door, make sure there aren't a bunch of like student interns coming in and out, like to take away all the decision making that I had to do at that moment because I can't make decisions. And so labor number 3, I think this is probably one of the more tender moments I had towards him, is we were at a teaching hospital. So sure enough, 2 a.m, we're having this natural birth. It's going pretty well. And all of a sudden I've got all the students coming in, the med students starting to come in, because I didn't have a hep lock. I didn't have an IV. I didn't have anything. And it was in my chart and it was fine. There was no reason for it. But I had a student come in that was very insistent that I needed to get an IV going at like 8 centimeters and like almost ready to start pushing. And it was a very opinionated med student in the middle of the night. I'm hard in labor. And they came in and were very insistent. And I just remember my husband was sitting on the bed and I was sitting on a birth ball, and I kind of buried my head into his chest and I wouldn't look at her because I was like, I'm busy, lady. Like, you need to leave. And I like squeezed my husband's sides, like with my fingernails. Like that was like all I could communicate in that moment. And my husband was just like, you need to leave right now.
Oh my.
And she was like, no, you don't understand. You need to get out like an IV. You need a hep lock right now. Like this is against hospital policy. It was right in my chart. It was totally fine. It was right in my chart. My OB had written it off. No big deal. Zero threat for any problem. And he's just like, no, you need to leave. And she was like, well, this is very irregular. This is very dangerous. He's like, we got it. We're fine. We're fine. You need to leave right now. And like my grip was just like getting tighter and tighter on him. And then she finally was like, have a great birth. And he was like, we will. Like just like kicked her out of the room. And I remember just being like, that is exactly what I needed you to do in this moment. I needed you to kick her out. And we did. So it was like that authority of, knowing his way around a hospital that was very protective of me in that moment, that was really endearing.
Aww. I have all these memories of my Josh, like just in those first moments, you're tired, whether you have an epidural or not, like you're tired. There's like this incredible relief, obviously. It's much more heightened when you've had a natural birth. So that relief is very, very, very present when you've had a natural birth. And I just have many different visual memories of just the 3 of us, like him with his arms around me and like with the baby, and just those first very, very precious moments when you get to meet, your new family member. I also love those, one of the questions I prepared here was, how did you announce, the baby? I love those first moments. Like maybe it's a couple hours, maybe it's a full day, like whatever it is, whatever everybody decides to do. But I just, there's something so precious that it's only the 3 of you, and maybe obviously like a couple people in the hospital or attendants who know that this little person exists. And I just find that to be such a precious, precious little time. Ah, so fun. So
Makes you want to have another one, doesn't it, Lisa?
Like I a future where women don't fear pregnancy. I am game. we'll see what happens. I don't know. But yeah, whatever happens, my body clearly likes to do this. So we'll see what happens in the next. So funny story, or not funny, but just I tend to get pregnant whenever Apple comes out with a new iPhone.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
So like, I don't know what it is about their product development cycle. Like, I don't know if it's like 18 to 24 months. That's how they work on phones. That is how I have babies. My babies have been historically 18 to 24 months. And so there are a few friends in our lives.
It's hilarious.
Will be like, hey, the new iPhone is coming. Do you have an announcement? So anyway, there's no announcement yet, but
do you get yourself a new phone then as like your baby gift to yourself?
Wouldn't that be? Hey, Apple, you should send me a phone every time. But no.
He has a baby, and she'll name them after you.
Okay, I honestly could talk about this all day, but maybe this will be the actual final question. Do you get yourself a gift, Leah Jacobson? Like, do you ever get yourself something post?
Not really. I don't. I've never. No, an iPhone would be nice. A new phone that would be lovely. No, I've never gotten myself a gift. Have you?
I have one ritual 10 times that I've done 10 times. I always buy new pants. Like, they don't have to be new.
Like maternity pants or postpartum pants?
Postpartum pants. Like, they don't have to be like, it can be at the secondhand store. Like, it doesn't have to be, necessarily like a new pair of pants. But because you're in that interesting stage, right? You're not quite. Maybe you want to wear your maternity clothes because you're just so happy to be out of them. Maybe you don't want, like, I don't really like being in sweatpants all the time. Like, I just prefer to be in like regular clothing, right? And so I will just either order online, or, if I can make it to a store, I will. But just like, I get myself something that actually fits, that is in that weird in between size. That's not maternity. I love, this is such a random memory that I don't know if anyone else can relate to, but I get satisfaction in putting on a pair of pants that buttons. Like, it's kind of just like, oh, wow, I haven't been able to do this in a really long time. And so I will just get a pair of pants that's like in the sort of in between size when I'm, that kind of thing. So
I guess there is something that I wouldn't really consider it a gift to myself. It was more of a challenge to myself early on. My first few babies, I was going to complete a half marathon for every baby that I had. And so I got new running shoes. So I did do it twice. I did 2 half marathons after my first 2 babies. And then I gave myself like a solid stress fracture and like messed up my hip.
Leah.
And that's the thing. Like, really understanding, I don't think I really understood the changes that happen to your body, especially athletically, the muscles structure changes, the ligaments being loose, and not taking the time to properly heal, I think has always been, that's the thing I think I take away and learn the most, is that your body changes and you can't just immediately bounce back to, I see some of these Olympians and some of these women that are like a couple months after their babies, like they're qualifying for the Olympics. And I'm like, well, now that was not my experience, but I guess I get myself a new pair of running shoes.
That's cute. That's so good. Wow, Leah, this was so fun. I love learning new things about you and all of your stories every time we talk about this. And if you're listening at home, I hope this was a fun trip down memory lane for you as well. I think there's a very beautiful thing about sharing birth stories, because it's a unifying experience.
Yeah.
Like it is, we all have our stories. It's such an accomplishment to give birth. And
no matter how it happens, that's the reality of it too. Like, if it's an epidural, if it's a C-section, if it's, a vaginal home birth delivery, whatever, like, no matter how it happens, like, you still come out changed on the other side. And that is something that we all share, that experience of figuring out our new identity as mothers, reordering our life around this little human being that now is like the center of our universe, bringing this new little person into our family. Like, we all share that sort of experience of just, it's overwhelming, but it's so good. So good.
There's really like those endorphins, those hormones in those immediate moments after giving birth are truly like such a unique experience.
Yeah, you can't replicate that any other way but doing it.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the Fearless Future podcast. If you liked this episode, please feel free to share it with a friend, with anyone who loves this concept of a more natural approach to women's healthcare and a vision of a future where no woman fears pregnancy. We will see you next time.
Bye.